GADA. Go anywhere, do anything. The fad name for the one watch collection piece, and fair enough, it stuck. To earn the title, a watch needs just one thing: versatility. That means a Goldilocks size, neutral colours, strap monster compliancy, and rugged enough to get you out of trouble, but slick enough to get you into trouble. So here's my list of the ultimate affordable GADA watches for under £300. Pittsman, a brand name so un-Korean that they had to place the word soul underneath it just to prove that they're not a dodgy Netflix Albuquerque lawyer that only defends tax-dodging CEOs and gangsters, and somehow still haven't shaken off that connotation. But their watches? About as quintessentially Korean as they come. Think of them as the Kia Stinger GTS of watches, engineered with the swagger of a German luxury saloon, but priced like a used Peugeot with the usual electrical gremlins. And yes, the Overture may be a quartz offering, but this ain't no cheap £3 Miyota quartz movement. So Stinger GTS? No. More like the electric lunacy of a 650 brake horsepower Hyundai Ioniq 5N. The watch, at first glance, isn't exactly reinventing the wheel. Beige and olive dials scream vintage field watch, the textured surfaces nod to the past, while the angular case flirts with modern sports watch design. There's even a faint whiff of Black Bay 1 in the bezel and indices. It's a buffet of borrowed ideas, but somehow it works. The bracelet is where things get clever. A push-button clasp with on-the-fly adjustment, while on the wrist, finally, a microbrand solving a problem instead of creating one. Add a tasteful mix of brushed and polished finishing, and you've got something that looks far more expensive than it should. The design walks the line between retro and modern like it's got commitment issues, which works in your favour. Metal, leather, rubber, nylon, this thing won't care what you strap to it. It'll make it work. Like pulling the ugliest girl in the club at closing time. Not picky, just up for anything, and somehow still ending up being the best night of your life. Then there's the specs. 39mm case, 46mm lug-to-lug, and just 8.5mm thick. Sapphire crystal with AR coating, 120 metres of water resistance, and the ETA F07 quartz movement. Not just any quartz, this one's accurate to within 10 seconds a year. That's not overkill, that's engineered pettiness. And yes, the original price had some reviewers clutching at their pearls, but under £220 with 50% off, it's the kind of deal that feels slightly illegal. Better call Saul. Pitzman. The Revelot Terra might just be the final boss of GADA watches. A vintage military watch? Yes. An aviation watch? Sure. Sports watch? Why not? Dress watch? If you're brave enough. It's like it was designed by a committee, if that committee comprised of only the coolest people to have ever lived. To me, it nails what a homage should be. A respectful nod to the past without licking its boots. It doesn't just copy history, it shows up uninvited, takes all the spices, builds a railway, opens a school, and leaves behind just enough infrastructure for a call centre that it'll take advantage of in the future. The dial's clearly the star of the show, with that small seconds at 6 o'clock pulled straight from the MOD Dirty Dozen playbook. Then come the big blocky loomed numerals, modern, bold, and just brash enough to belong in a Spitfire cockpit with scribbled down mission notes stained with cold tea. Or, more realistically, a digital cockpit in Microsoft Flight Simulator, flown poorly by someone in fluffy slippers. The case and bracelet carry that toxic marriage of old and new. The rounded shape and onion crown screen pocket watch, but the angular lugs jut out at the top and bottom like Marty McFly forgot to top up the flux capacitor and crash-landed his DeLorean in occupied France in 1942. It absolutely shouldn't work, and yet I absolutely love it. Specs-wise, a compact 38mm case, 44mm lug-to-lug, 11.9mm thick, top hat sapphire crystal, BGW9 loom, 100 metres of water resistance, and the Seagull ST17 automatic movement providing that vintage seconds at 6 vibe. As for GADA credentials, it's got them in spades. Whether it's on the bracelet, leather, FKM rubber, or a battered old canvas strap you found in a drawer, it'll shift character with every swap. Priced at £236 on leather, topping out at £280 on the bracelet with on-the-fly adjustment, it's a bit of a steal really, like the spice trades, but with fewer ships and marginally less imperialism. One day, we'll look back on 2025 with a mix of fondness and quiet disbelief. That there was a time that you could buy an immaculately finished, high-spec Chinese watch from San Martin, Boltony, Kronos or Bettimer without needing a finance plan. And speaking of Bettimer, stay tuned, I'll have a review up very soon. And spoiler alert, it's a doozy. Soon enough, you'll be handing over 4 figures and calling it reasonable because it's still great value at £1,000. You might not know how lucky you are, but take my advice. Stockpile right now, because mark my words, I've seen the future and it's expensive, mainstream and sold out before you even hear about it. I could have picked any number of San Martins for this list, but the SN0144 with this particular dial might just be the purest form of modern Chinese GADA watch. Clean, versatile and detailed enough to get us watch nerds breathing a little too heavily. The specs are a bit of a mouthful. 3 sizes, 36mm GS, 42mm GL and the perfectly reasonable 39mm GX with a 46.5mm lug-to-lug and a tidy 10.1mm thickness, sapphire crystal, BGW9 lume, 100 metres of water resistance and a bracelet with on-the-fly adjustment. All very well balanced. It's £250 on FKM rubber or £280 on the bracelet. And honestly, at that price, with the Miyota 9015 high beat movement inside, you'd be mad not to. But San Martin does have a slight issue. They're getting too good. At this rate, they'll peak before the West figures out that they're not just making homages, they're making competition. You can either buy this excellent watch now, or wait a week and buy an even better one. It's a conundrum, yes, but as far as headaches go, it's a rather pleasant one. If you value a Swiss-made stamp over a second-hand hitting any one of the 60 markers it's allegedly aiming for, then Tissot has you covered with the PR100. It's the kind of watch you buy when you realise not every timepiece in your collection needs to come with a tortured backstory or a 47-part YouTube documentary on historical accuracy. The PR100 is what happens when a Swiss brand sobers up, trims the fat and designs something for people who just need a nice watch and possibly a break from their own personality. It's clean and it's tidy. It's beige chinos and a pressed shirt. Unremarkable at first glance, but somehow perfect for every occasion that doesn't involve a helmet or a wetsuit. This is GADA distilled into its purest form. Go anywhere, do anything, and try not to make a scene while you're at it. The dial, about as controversial as a church bake sale. Applied indices, a discreet date window, and hands that look like they were designed by someone who took one look at Bauhaus minimalism and said, yes, but make it less fun. And yes, the quartz secondhand doesn't hit the markers. Cry about it. Or simply move on with your life like the rest of us emotionally functioning adults. At 40mm and 47mm lug-to-lug, it's slim, light and manageable, and 100 metres of water resistance means you can wash the sins off your weekend without too much worry. The movement is Swiss quartz, which means it costs a bit more but probably contains just as much plastic as its Japanese counterpart. But did I mention it is Swiss? At £280, it's not a bargain, but it's not pretending to be. It's reliable, well finished and utterly devoid of pretension. A watch for the moments in life where you don't want to be asked, what are you wearing? Because you're too busy doing something that actually matters. The Tissot PR100, for when you finally accepted that your wrist doesn't always need to be a conversation starter. And sometimes being left alone is the ultimate luxury. If the PR100 is the quiet accountant of the watch world, reliable, placid, and not a threat to anyone's ego, then the Quazar Starlight is its chaotic younger cousin who shows up to a funeral in sequins and insists on singing a solo. This thing is a paradox in polished steel. The dial, a slab of real aventurine, sparkles like it was mined from Elton John's underpants. The handset is dressy, the case shiny enough to double as a signal mirror, and the whole thing looks like it should be sipping overpriced cocktails somewhere with ambient jazz and too much velvet. But then you clock the chunky sports bracelet and thick lugs, like it's ready to brawl in a Wetherspoons car park at closing time. There's a war going on here, Mayfair upstairs, pub fight downstairs, and no one's quite sure who's winning. Then there's the logo. Oh, the logo. An acquired taste at the best of times, but someone at Quazar clearly attached the wrong file to the email. Instead of logo-watchdial.pdf, the dial printer got logo-billboard.pdf. So massive, it practically needs its own postcode. But let's give the devil its due, because beneath that disco ball dial and questionable typography, the Starlight is an absolute spec fest. 41mm wide, 47.5mm lug to lug, a tidy 11.5mm thick, you get dome sapphire crystal, proper 100 metres water resistance, and that glittering aventurine face is no fake job. BGW9 loom in all the right places, and ticking underneath is the Miyota 9015. A high-beat automatic keeps time with the kind of reliable predictability the design team clearly didn't value. In short, it's ridiculous. It's overstyled, it's arguably committing a hate crime against typography. But you know what? It's oddly brilliant. If you've ever wanted an affordable £250 GADA watch and subtlety isn't in your vocabulary, congratulations, you've arrived. Some watches arrive with fireworks and press releases. The Chronos L6040 slinks in the back door, unscrews the crown with gloved fingers and quietly removes the competition without leaving a fingerprint. You won't see it on billboards, you won't see influencers fake gasping at it on TikTok, you'll just see it and quietly want it. At first glance, it looks like something Grand Seikko left unattended in a nightclub. The brushing is crisp, the polishing precise, and the hands are more Dauphine than your average French aristocrat. All of this wrapped in a 39mm case with 47mm lug to lug and a svelte 10.85mm thickness. The brushing on the case is crisp, the polishing is clean, and those sharp Dauphine hands, they look like they were honed by someone who had just about enough of mediocrity. But let's not pretend you're here for the case specs. That dial. Not sparkly, not sunbursty, just deeply, unapologetically textured, like the lacquered bark of an ancient tree or the surface of a graphite planet lit by a dying star. It's intricate without being flashy, detailed without being busy. Every time you glance at it, it gives you a different read. It's like it's telling you a story, but doesn't fully trust you with the juicy details yet. Specs: sapphire crystal, BGW9 loom, 100 metres of water resistance, screw down crown, everything you need, nothing you don't. And somehow, it still manages to feel like it's flirting with dress watch territory before heading to the bowling alley for beers. Inside you've got a choice of the Miyota 9015 or PT5000 movements, both solid and high beat, and yes, the date window at 3 is tastefully done, framed and not pretending to be invisible. And the price? £170 for the PT5000 and £200 for the Miyota. Yes, the Miyota is usually worth the upgrade, but here it doesn't earn its keep. The usual payoff is a slimmer case and sleeker profile, but that doesn't happen. Same waistline, more money. So if it were my cash, I'd pocket the 30 quid and let the PT5000 do the heavy lifting in silence. This is the Seikko SRPE, or as it's affectionately known among watch nerds, the Dress KX. Why? Because it's an SKX that's been de-bezeled, defanged and sent off to sensitivity training. The sort of watch that used to do shots in the pub, but now it's gone all woke, drinks oatmeal lattes and displays its pronouns in its bio. But it still carries the DNA of its tool watch forebears. But now it whispers instead of shouts. The dial is clean and restrained, with applied indices that catch the light without begging for attention. It's the kind of design that doesn't need to prove anything, not because it's trying to be understated, but because it genuinely doesn't care whether you notice or not. There's still a crown between the 3 and 4 o'clock, and 100 metres of water resistance, which means you can take it in the pool, but you probably won't. Much like you could do parkour in brogues, but it's not really the vibe anymore. It's 40mm wide, 44mm lug to lug, and just over 11mm thick. Comfortable, wearable, and non-threatening enough to slip under a cuff without raising an eyebrow. The crystal is hardlex, naturally, because heaven forbid Seikko give us a sapphire crystal without somebody possessing photos of their CEO in a compromising position. Inside beats the 4R36, unremarkable, unfussy, and about as dramatic as a midweek shepherd's pie. It hacks, it hand winds, and it'll be keeping passable time long after you remember owning the thing. Then there's the loom, which, like most Seikkos, will remain deeply overqualified for the job, lighting up like a teenager's vape pen at the bus stop. This is truly a versatile watch, just not with too much excitement. On leather, it passes for a dress watch. On a NATO, it flirts with field watch territory. On the stock bracelet, well, it's a Seikko bracelet. You'll replace it. We all do. And all this for around £200, which in today's climate feels like an admin error that's somehow gone uncorrected. The Casio Edifice EFV 110D isn't here to impress the watch snobs. It's here to quietly outperform everything in your drawer that costs 3 times as much and needs twice as much babysitting. It's 38mm of stainless steel restraint, brushed in all the right places, polished just enough to catch the light without catching attention. The case shape is clean and confident, the kind of geometry that looks like it was designed by someone who actually knows what a wrist looks like. The dial, pure function. Sharp indices, clean printing, and a discreet date window at 3 o'clock. It appears when required, once a day, rather than launching into the air, spinning in place and expecting applause like a 4-year-old high on fruit shoot. The second hand, by some small miracle of Japanese engineering discipline, does what the Swiss have tried and failed to do for over 50 years, hit its markers. 100 metres of water resistance, because why not? It doesn't have a screw-down crown, but this isn't some fragile dress piece that wilts under weather. You could wear it in the rain, to the beach, or through the unexpected plumbing disaster, and it won't even flinch. The bracelet, solid end links. Yes, at this price. Sure, the clasp isn't exactly Swiss poetry, but it'll click shut and stay shut. That's all you need. Anything more is just theatre. Inside, a no-fuss quartz movement. It doesn't hack, it doesn't wind, it doesn't care, and that's the point. The EFV 110D isn't loud. It doesn't peacock. But if your idea of a GADA watch is something that just quietly gets everything right without asking for praise, well, this one might be whispering your name. At £130, it's not exactly bargain basement, and sure, there's a 42mm sibling that might cost you less. But still, I'd take this 38mm and the extra cost for comfort and a more refined look every time. If you want a versatile watch that's simultaneously a gentleman's field companion and a subtle wrist flex, the Walbrook Douglas Outrider Professional Mecha Quartz might just be your secret weapon. At 38mm wide and a modest 12mm thick, it'll lay on your wrist like a soldier laying on a stretcher, perfecting his "please don't send me to the front line" face. The drilled lugs are a polite but firmly reminder from the watch that swapping straps is a thing. The screw-down crown and case back push water back to a respectable 120 metres. Dial-wise, things are kept refreshingly simple. No date window, just a tiny 24-hour subdial at 6 o'clock, quietly pretending it has a purpose, knowing full well that nobody will ever try to tell the time with it. The Hesselite crystal is a clear nod to vintage styling, not just in looks, but in feel, and its slight distortion will warp the C3 Superluminova glow like a funhouse mirror, throwing you straight back into the charming days of muzzle flashes, shell shock, and lice, except with none of the fun included. Underneath, the Seikko VH60 Mecha Quartz movement delivers quartz accuracy with a satisfyingly vintage, mechanically jerky sweep. The steel beads of rice bracelet looks polished, but not like it's trying too hard to be fancy. And at £164 on nylon, or £216 on the stunning beads of rice bracelet, it's practically a steal. Cheap enough to stockpile a battalion of NATOs, canvas and leather straps, because in the war of wristwear, you'll want ammo for every front. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.